Y'all, there was an election last night. There were elections last night all around the country. I haven't even slept yet from being up, doing the coverage around them. And I have to say that the results were disappointing for Democrats, to say the least. Virginia, a state that Biden won handily by 10 points only a year ago, and the first southern state to embody the so-called blue wave, went red in a not so surprising but still disappointing turn of events. Former Governor Terry McAuliffe, despite having major party support and lots of appeals to black voters and also outraising his opponent, was unable to secure the governor's seat. The DNC invested heavily in the Virginia governor's race, as well as the New Jersey governor's race. The Associated Press now projects that the state's incumbent governor, Phil Murphy, has edged out his challenger, making him the first Democratic governor to win re-election in that state in 40 years. It was a far tougher re-election battle the Democrats expected. And in fact, up until just about 20 minutes ago, New Jersey had been way too close to call. All eyes, though, have been on Virginia, because that state can often be a canary in the coal mine for what's to come in other swing states. These elections, especially Virginia's, offer lessons that Democrats would be wise to learn from before next year's midterms. Virginia governor's mansion going red might just indicate how the state will vote when it comes time for House races and even maybe for the presidential election. Biden's favorability right now is down all across the country, and the Democrats really can't uncouple themselves from Biden. And, once more, party infighting is just a bad look, and so much of what we have been talking about on the show for the last several months. The president's decreasing favorability is more about his ability to deliver on his policy agenda or not than the actual content of that agenda. So the best things the Democrats could do right now is to actually come together on the Build Back Better agenda and to deliver some much-needed relief to Americans so that they can feel a favorable impact of actually having a Democratic majority in Washington. All this party infighting leaves voters feeling frustrated and distrustful. We should be unified right now on the candidates that we support and the policy objectives that we share while we have a Democratic majority. But as the centrists and the progressives keep duking it out over the soul of the party, voters are left feeling like the Democrats generally can't or won't deliver for them. McAuliffe, who is a centrist backed by Biden and institutional Democrats, and while it might be tempting to draw the conclusion then that a progressive candidate might have actually galvanized the base more in a state like Virginia, that actually might not be the case. And that, frankly, is interesting. We saw that that wasn't even the case in New York City. If we look at some other races where Democrats won, then the picture becomes even more opaque. Some local elections saw historic wins for candidates of color. In New York City, retired police officer Eric Adams became the city's second black mayor, while Alvin Bragg became the first black district attorney for Manhattan. In Boston, Michelle Wu became the first woman and person of color elected to the mayor's office. And in Dearborn, Michigan, a city with a large Arab population, state legislator Abdullah Hammoud became the first Arab American mayor. These wins undoubtedly signal that more diverse candidates perform well in cities that are also diverse. I'm always talking to you all about the fact that we have a rising new American majority. And even in Virginia, the shifting demographics of an increasingly polychromatic voter base is in large part why the state went blue and stayed blue for over a decade until now. But diversity doesn't necessarily translate into support for more progressive policies and candidates. In Minnesota, an effort to replace the police department with a new Department of Public Safety was rejected. In New York City, a progressive city chose a moderate mayor. Not only is Eric Adams not interested in defunding the police, he's actually the police. And some believe that his choice to distance himself from the defund the police and police reform agenda is what actually helped him to secure the seat. Off-cycle elections do give us some insight into midterm elections, but we do have to be wary of drawing predictive conclusions or learning the wrong lessons. A lot can change in a year, but if Democrats want to hold on to some of the gains that they've made over the last several election cycles and prevent a second coming of Trump, then they need to start delivering on their promises and decide how progressive the party really is. The Congressional Black Caucus and Party Democrats need to back more diverse candidates across the board, even if the choice is not an incumbent. And progressives need to acknowledge that even the best intentioned policies aren't always popular and require deep buy-in by voters. Black voters are often the difference makers in these dead heat races. We need to be engaged earlier and often, and our right to vote, which is in peril right now thanks to Republicans, needs to be fiercely protected at all cost. But what black voters really need is for Democrats to actually deliver on their promises. Otherwise, we're left just feeling like pawns for a party system that doesn't acknowledge us unless it's election season. And we know that if black voters don't have a dog in the fight, if they have to choose between two centrist white men, or if they feel like their votes don't lead to the change that was actually promised, then they just might stay home. That's not good for anyone.